5 years ago, on February 17, 2009, former Border Patrol agent Ignacio Ramos was released from federal prison after serving 2 years, mostly in solitary confinement, of a 12-year sentence after he and fellow Border Patrol agent Jose Compion were charged and convicted of using a firearm during a crime of violence, which carries a mandatory 10-year sentence. What was their alleged crime? Well, they shot and wounded an illegal alien drug smuggler along the border near El Paso, Texas, after he abandoned a van carrying 743 pounds of marijuana worth over $1 million, resisted arrest, and took off on foot for the Mexican border. The nightmare that ensued for agents Ramos and Compion and their families is unimaginable for most people. Although the ordeal came to an end when President Bush commuted their sentences as one of his last official acts in office, it's never really over for them. Here to share his story with us is Agent Ramos and his wife, Monica. Welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Glad we're here. Thank you for having us.
So, Nacho, I want you to tell us a little bit about what it was like for you the day that you heard about your commutation. You and I are no strangers. We know each other very well. I was a huge advocate for you guys for many years when I was with Congressman Rohrabacher's office, and we spent lots of time on the phone while you were in prison helping you cope through this. But what did you think that day when you finally heard that you, in fact, had been commuted?
Well, that was one of the longest weekends of my life. I thought the last day for Bush was, for President Bush was that Friday. So I didn't think anything was going to happen anymore. And I was still listening to the only outside source of information I had was a little radio. And I was still listening to the radio stations that I did. And when I heard the news, all I could do was scream. Mm-hmm. That's all I did because I was just so overwhelmed with joy. You
know, Monica, you were actually in New York, I believe, getting ready to go on Glenn Beck's first show on Fox News, and Glenn had been such a huge supporter of you guys in keeping this story. He was instrumental in keeping your story in the news and helping you guys, even personally getting involved through your ordeal. Monica, you know, when you and I had many conversations, cried many tears over this through the 2 years, did you think that news was going to come through? I know I was starting to have my doubts, even though I was praying.
I was definitely having my doubts, and it was just a miracle when I found out. Prior to going on the show, I thought, wow, we were getting ready to go on the show, make our last plea, and lo and behold, I would get the news while I was in my hotel room. I just couldn't believe it. Mm-hmm. I was just, somebody, please, is this real? Is my husband coming home?
Well, you know, part of what made your story such a national cause, I mean, millions of people rallied behind support for you guys because they couldn't understand how our own government would prosecute 2 Border Patrol agents who were basically doing their jobs. The mistakes that you guys may or may not have made could have been handled administratively, but how did it get to that level? And we look at what the price that you guys paid. And just tell me a little bit about it, a little bit about what helped you get through those 2 years you spent in solitary confinement.
Well, it still baffles me how we got to that point, but basically all the support, just the overwhelming amount of letters that I received in prison, and just knowing that there were so many people out there that believed in us and helped us every step of the way through, and knowing that my wife never stopped fighting for me every step of the way. And, you know, I mean, I could go on and on, but I go back to the very first time I actually met you in person after I was assaulted in prison. And I met you and Congressman Tancredo. And
what did I say to you that day? What did I promise you?
That you would walk me out of prison, free man, and you did.
Yep. And, you know, that day is something I'll never forget. I think we have some pictures from that day, and we'll roll them while we talk. Tell me just a little bit how, like now, in the 5 years, how have you guys been? How's your family? You know, how has this affected you? You guys have 3 sons who were there through this whole thing. Tell me a little bit about what the last 5 years of freedom have been like for you.
You know, it's been tough. It's been tough trying to pick up the pieces. We made a big move from El Paso to Houston. And, you know, if it wasn't one thing that tore our family apart, it was another. That was a big move. But our kids have been pretty resilient, and that's what was important to me after I got out, just knowing that they were going to be okay, knowing first and foremost that my family was going to be safe, and that was the biggest move. That was the biggest reason why I decided we needed to move out of El Paso, and why we moved where we did.
So let me ask you, another anniversary would be coming up in the next couple of months. It would have been 20 years you would have been a Border Patrol agent, right?
Yes.
If you had the opportunity, would you do it all again?
Absolutely. I wouldn't change a thing, including that day. Me responding the way I did, me acting the way I did was just part of me and part of how I did the job. If somebody needed help, I was there.
Yep, that's the way it is for law enforcement officers. When it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And we can't thank you enough for your service. And I'm glad to see that the injustice was somewhat righted in this case for you. At least you do have your freedom, but you're still a convicted felon, and that still carries a lot of limitations on things that you can and cannot do. Just give me briefly, quickly, how has that affected you? What can't you do now?
Well, I can't. If I were to retire as a Border Patrol agent, I'd probably be getting ready to go teach. Or I wanted to coach, just be a PE coach. I can't do that. And that's something I really enjoy to do because my kids grew up, and I used to love coaching kids in baseball. And that's just one of my passions, and I can't do that. And yet, even in spite of that, I still got a chance to do that because there were a lot of people, a lot of parents out there that still trusted me with their children.
Well, I wish the best to you and Monica, and she was a stalwart fighter for you. And, you're 5 years out, you're eligible for a pardon. I think we should keep on fighting and try to work for that pardon and remove that felony for you guys.
We will, somehow, some way. We're going to keep on fighting.
I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.